So good afternoon, it's Friday the 16th of August and it is just coming up 10 past 3 in the afternoon. I'm Dave Geddes and I'll be overseeing the assessment of Simon. Simon, if you can introduce yourself please.
I'm Simon Green, I'm the Technical Supervisor at Devices Training Centre.
Okay, before we go any further I'll just make it clear that prior to me turning the camera on I did speak to Simon and ask him if he was happy to be recorded. And Simon?
Yes, I'm happy, yes.
Fantastic, thank you. So we're here today, Simon, basically as the assessment outcome meeting from the recent assessments you've gone through and the two assessment plans, SG-1 and SG-2, and that was in relation to the Level 3 award in risk assessment within the workplace. Okay?
Yeah.
So you're correct, that's the right one we're here for, isn't it?
That is the correct one, yes.
Okay, that's great. And we had the two plans which we agreed on Friday the 9th of August, and we'll go through those both in a moment now.
Okay.
Before I do though, I'll just make it just remind you on a few little bits there. So I'm held by the Services Core Code of Ethics and also things like the Equalities Act and stuff like that. So it's about me treating you fairly and ensuring a fair, transparent and open assessment. Health and safety wise, we've gone through there, and obviously as we go on to subject to risk assessments, we're meeting today in the classroom. All the assessment process you've gone through, we've made sure that it's been done in a fair and safe manner. Do you agree with that?
I would agree, yeah.
And with regards to GDPR, again, just to remind you that we're videoing the session today, and we've done a couple of other sessions, and there's a lot of paperwork that's been produced as well as a result of this. It does contain your name and stuff like that, but what I'll do is it'll be used as part of my assessment process that I've got to go through as well, and I'll share this with the assessing body. Once that's all been done and the use it's been intended for is complete, at that point now I'll make sure that any copies that I've got will be destroyed and that they'll deal with anything that they've got held as well for them. And the videos that we've taken that are currently loaded onto a private page on YouTube, once they've been used and for the purposes they're intended for, I'll wipe those as well and close that page down. Okay. The last part on there really is when we met back on the 9th of August, I did provide you with a copy of the appeals and complaints procedure as well. And I'll just remind you that if, as we go through we'll go through this session, if there's anything on there that you don't agree with, anything on there that you don't agree with my assessment outcome or any way that we kind of go through for this next bit, please, I'll refer you back to that document. Okay?
Yeah.
Have you got any questions?
No.
Okay. So, thank you, Simon. Thank you for coming today. And thank you for your efforts over your recent sort of qualification, or the recent piece of work that you've done. I suppose I'm going to ask Scott, how you found it?
It's been quite good, to be fair. Yes, I quite enjoyed it. It's opened my eyes a couple of things. We'll go through that in a little while. But yeah, it's been quite good. Quite enjoyed it. And it's nice to have something to go against what I actually do as a technical supervisor and have something to say that I'm doing my job correctly.
Yeah, okay. So what have been the key highlights for you?
To be honest, it's trying to look at the job and obviously look at the risk assessments and trying to do it to a proper and finding out I am doing it correctly and doing the job that I'm supposed to be doing. Okay.
And any other takeaways from there?
Few learning points, to be a little bit more direct with things, be a little bit more information when you're doing information gathering, once you're writing things down and stuff, and just be a little bit more direct and put a little bit more material in with the answers and things.
Okay, so challenge-wise, what kind of challenges have you had?
Challenges, I've not been in education for a long time, so as for doing a written exam, yes, I've done them in the past over a few years, but very far and few between. So trying to answer the questions correctly in a manner that's expected was a little bit challenging. I should have given a little bit more information and a little bit more material with regard to the answer. So with that, yeah, that was a little bit of a challenge for me, if I'm being honest.
And where do you think your strengths have been?
I think strengths is obviously just working out the outside is my strengths, and just being open and honest with my findings, and obviously trying to record those things. Okay,
and then looking towards the future, what do you want to do? How do you want to take this newfound knowledge and
develop it? Really, to be fair, it's sort of opened my eyes a little bit. Which I not so much took for granted, but it's something that's opened my eyes up that I can carry on and develop a little bit further.
Okay, that's great then. So we've got various options within the service, haven't we, for taking on further courses and qualifications and assessments and stuff like that. So looking forward to doing all those.
Well, hopefully, see how we go.
Well, yeah, and then with the expected work we've got on a training centre coming up as well, and the millions of pounds that are going to be spent on it, and that's going to see a bit of an expansion in your role, isn't it?
That will be interesting. Yeah, interesting future for us. Yeah, it will be, because obviously we will be closing it for a few months whilst the work's being done, and obviously with that, we're going to have to go to other sites. So that'll be another part of my job that will get very busy.
Yeah. So all the sort of the stuff that you've covered off from here, like your risk assessments and understanding the training venues and applying those and the premise inspections, and that would be useful for that.
Yeah.
In that short term when we shut down.
Yeah.
And in the longer term when we come back and we've got all the additions and adaptations to the building.
Yeah, 100%.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad it's been of some use to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, should we go through the assessment plans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go through the assessment plans then. So, just to remind you then, so we talked about it there. We had 2 assessment plans set up for you there, Simon. Assessment plan SG-1 and assessment plan SG-2. And so that we were there, it's almost like it was a vocational application of your role in the workplace. But what we did was we used the Level 3 award in risk assessment, and we used that as our sort of a baseline, as a metric to give us some assessment criteria to work towards. When we met on the 9th, we did go through. So the first part we looked at was Unit 1, and that was understand the importance of health and safety in the workplace. And there was 2 criteria in there. One which was list the main costs of work-related accidents and ill health to employers, employees and society. And the second one which was outline the duties and responsibilities of employers, employees and others with respect to workplace health and safety. Okay, does that remind you?
Yeah, that was all.
Yeah. And then what we did on there was we used that. You claimed recognised prior learning for there.
Yeah.
And that was to do with the introduction to health and safety module that you've done within the organisation. And what we wanted to do was a course certificate. To say that you've attended a course, and then in the background of there, what I did was I actually went and had a look at the course itself and the questions that go into it, or the learning input that went into the course, and then the question bank that sits at the end of it, which was that multiple choice questioning, and then see from there, and then the certificate that came off the back of it. And you provided me with a copy of that certificate. When we did meet on the 12th of August. You provided me with that evidence as well. We did have a bit of a chat at the same time as well, which was recorded, and we have that as one of our recordings. And all I did was there, we had a bit of a discussion in and around some of the areas there, and that was just for me to get that understanding of where that knowledge was and how you would understood it and taken it on board. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do
you remember those or
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. Yeah. And I'd say from there, what was the learning points you got from the online course that you've applied that have helped you through the rest of this process?
It's obviously an online course that we use within the service. It was just interesting to read through. Obviously, the different examples they've shown of different stuff. Obviously, like how much it costs and things like that. You don't realise what it costs if there is something that happens within a certain business or whatever, and how much it costs the country. Or employer, sorry. Okay, yeah. So if I summarise on there, Simon, it's been of use. The RPL that was in there as well, you've claimed RPL and been able to go back and have a look at that course, look at what the learning outcomes were from it, and then also look at the multiple choice questions at the end of it. Assessed against Unit 1 at criterion 1.2 and 1.3. It covered those off. And the evidence requirements, which was a course certificate, and we had that video discussion where I probed you, asked you a few questions, and you was able to explain it in and around there. More than happy that it's met that criteria for there. Okay. The next part of assessment plan SG-1, which went under Unit 3, which was understand the relationship between hazard and risk as part of an accident and ill health prevention strategy. And that was criterion 3.3 and 3.4, which was identify a range of work-related health and safety hazards in various work environments and outline who may be at risk from work-related hazards. And 4.1, which was under Unit 4, which was apply the hierarchy control to control risk to an acceptable level. And 4.1 being identify a range of control measures for different workplace hazards. So we had 3 criteria in there that we were looking to achieve.
And the easiest way to do that, we agreed, was be via written questions, just to sort of expand on that a little bit. And all this was about demonstrating that underpinning knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've already touched on it once, but how did you find that as an assessment method?
The written paper, yeah, as I said, I've not been in education for a long time, so with it, the answers was a little bit, they could have been a little bit more informative, could have sort of like expanded on them a little bit more, rather than just have it as, you know, the obvious answer. Should have just developed it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that one there.
Yeah.
The answers you've given me, and so the answers you provided were enough to meet the standard for the criterion. But there's some bits in there as well. When we look at the identify a range of work-related health and safety hazards, you've kind of gone through those, but it's been very, this is what they are, as opposed to a bit more context that sits behind them as well. When we talked about who may be at risks, within the various work environments, so 3.3, you covered off the drill yard, you covered off the fire grounds, and those bits in there as well. It would have been nice to have covered off the main block of the building. Yeah. There was enough within what you demonstrated to show that you had that understanding and knowledge, but it was that wider context understanding. Yeah. Outlining who may be at risk from the work-related hazards, you've kind of given the group in a brief undertaking, general trainers undertaking training in drill yard, but maybe a little bit more exposed to hazards from. However, we've kind of covered those off in various quick questions as well, to sort of cover those off as well. And then when we come on to the last part on there as well, which was about identify range of control measures, again, you've put those on there as well, and you've provided sort of a line and a half per answer. Again, just a little bit more context on that. Yeah. However, I fully understand your point around you've answered the questions as you thought they were, as where they would go. It's demonstrated enough knowledge and understanding there, and with all the other parts added together as well, I can see that actually that's more of a developmental point for the future, especially with what you were saying about the wanting to go and do other courses and other qualifications. That's a developmental point which we'll come back to at the end. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah, fine.
Cool. So that's assessment plan SG-1. Have you got any questions on there? No. Do you want to know what the outcome was?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So as far as SG-1 goes, with the two areas that were in there, I'm quite comfortable that you've demonstrated enough evidence to pass those successfully. Obviously, with regards to the second part of it there, with the written questions, obviously there's a developmental area there which we'll take forward. Yeah. But between the two areas, and if I link it to SG2 as well, you've demonstrated a good point there. Okay, to cover those off. Okay? Yeah, good. So congratulations on that one there. The next part on there, which will be assessment plan SG2. Do you remember what that was about?
That was a practical element.
Yeah. And what parts do you remember of the practical element that went with it?
Obviously doing an external risk assessment of the drill yard, making sure that the current risk assessment was up to date, and if there was any findings I had, readjust that risk assessment, and with that, obviously update premises inspections, etc.
Absolutely. So we looked at Unit 4, which was to apply the hierarchy of controls to control risk to an acceptable level. And the first part we looked at, which was criterion 4.2, which was determine if control measures currently in place are suitable and sufficient in terms of the risk control hierarchy to prevent exposure to hazards, reduce the health and safety related consequences should exposure to hazards occur, and effectively control an emergency situation related to health and safety hazards. So it's about where we are or where we were at that date, at that time. Yeah. And the assessment method we had for there was a product of work. So what we wanted you to do, and we agreed on, was that you were going to go and you were going to print off a copy of the current premises inspection record at that time, and a copy of the current risk assessment at that time for the drill yard, which was risk assessment DWFRS 05818. Yeah. And then you were going to use those to assess against those, for you to go out and practically apply a pragmatic approach, would you say? Yes. Or go out and actually review that risk assessment and that premises inspection sheet against that preventing exposures altogether, and determine if control measures currently in place are suitable and sufficient, which was that criteria, wasn't it? How did you find that?
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting to see some of the changes that we've currently got with the wildlife situation. Yeah. With the seagulls that are nesting on our roof, and the risk that they can sort of like cause us. That was definitely a hard hat area to wear. definitely, with the seagulls trying to fly around you.
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah, because they've been out there. I think they were attacking me a bit earlier when they were out there as well.
Yeah.
Did you find anything from assessment plan? You know, the SG-1, that underpinning knowledge and that. Did you find anything from there that was useful to you?
Yes, yeah. Obviously, just walking around with that prior knowledge from SG-1, just walking around using that material to develop the risk assessment and make sure you're looking a little bit further afield rather than just being a little bit blinkered and thinking it's that's it sort of thing.
Okay, so what do you think was your main positive from there?
Positive for me was just opening my eyes, really, to be fair, a little bit more than what I used to with regards to risk assessment, doing it, and just looking, obviously with the situation, like I said about the seagulls, we didn't really take them in consideration, as in you walk out there, you look and think, yeah, okay, but with that, it was positive to actually be able to see that and see what we can do about it.
Okay. Any other points you picked up in the yard?
Some drill, the drain covers, they've all been replaced properly now, where before they were slightly raised and they were a bit of a trip hazard, but now the risk is reduced slightly. So we will record that on the risk assessment. Okay.
Good. So if we look at criteria 4.2, which would determine if control measures currently in place are suitable and sufficient, do you think you did that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. No, well, I'd agree with you as well. When you went around there, you had a walk around. It would have been nice to have recorded it. Unfortunately, there was a problem in my phone at the time there, so I thought I'd recorded it. We got to the end of all that great bit of work, which links onto the second part of it, and then went to look at it, and unfortunately the recording had failed. So,
yeah, technology is
best. However, with the premises inspection record, which you provided me, which has got your notes onto it as well, and the risk assessment, which again you've gone through and made notes against, I'm happy that you've provided documentary evidence instead. So that product of work to meet that first criteria. The second part within that assessment plan, SG-2, was we looked at the premises inspection record and the risk assessment on that date at that time. You went round and you've identified a couple of parts within there, one being the seagulls and the covers and the drain covers, and the second bit was about what you're going to do with that information. So excuse me. The second part being Unit 5, which was applying knowledge of the risk assessment process in the workplace, and that was to undertake a risk assessment and use our findings to demonstrate the ability to collect information on the workplace, hazards that may be relevant, analyse the current level of risk and who may be exposed, determine suitable recommendations, and record and communicate findings effectively. Okay. What was your understanding of that?
The understanding of that was obviously updating risk assessments, updating the premises inspections, ensuring that all staff are aware of any changes to anything that may affect their health and safety. And with that, we recorded all that, and we got it basically got it recorded and up to date, and got a new date onto the risk assessment. That was that. Okay. So what do you think was what went well on that? I think what went well was obviously just being able to find new risks, as in with the seagulls, and just recording that, and just, as I said before, opening my eyes a little bit wider than as I have in the past.
Yeah, good. And what do you think was any challenges or problems that you faced?
Being a corporate and an operational member of staff, I've only got limited access to certain things, and one of those things is risk assessments. I can't physically go in there and change it myself. I have to go through the health and safety department and ask one of the colleagues in that department to do it for me. It would be better if I had, if because of my current role, had that access to do it myself rather than asking a third party to do it for me. Okay.
So what would you look at doing if you could do it differently? Or what support would you look at for the future?
Getting access so I can do it myself rather than, as I said, going through the third party. And moving forward, obviously with that, getting more access to different sites and more training on different departments.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So if we look at Unit 5 and the criteria there of undertake a risk assessment, find and demonstrate the findings, look at it. So what we agreed we were going to do was we'll take the premises inspection sheet from the previous assessment area, the one you went round and updated or reviewed, as I say, is probably the better word for it, reviewed, and the risk assessment, and then apply that to update it so that it was more relevant. So rather than it being how it was yesterday, it's how it is today and for next week and the week after, if that makes sense. And again, you've been good enough to provide me with a copy of the updated premises inspection record, which just shows the points you picked up in relation to seagulls and manhole covers within those areas there. And you've also provided me with an updated copy of the risk assessment. And you're quite right there, and I've mentioned it within the assessment plan actually, is about that conflict between your on-call and your corporate role. What I am glad to see though is the way that you've problem solved and gone round it by that communication and working with other departments and other people as well to get it in there and actually unblocking the situation. And again, I've seen an email that's come in as well there from the health and safety team where they're keen. Again, it kind of links to that whole development you want to do, isn't it? They're keen to book some time with you to put you through the risk assessment manager process, so that you can actually access the system and actually continue to do things
which would be good
on your own. So it actually form part of you unlock that system there for them, and the work you've done here has given them the confidence to actually take you forward on that area as well there. And there are the other e-learning packages as well that will fall off the back of that, which, as you've said yourself there, would be really good for you to take forward. You provided me with copies of those, that's great. The last part on there is about the recording the communication findings. You record and communicate your findings effectively. And again, if I take you back to that first sheet about putting on the health and safety notice board, the questions that we put on there as well about how you've done that, and you've explained to me how you would do that as well. So do you want to know the outcome of this sheet?
Yes, please.
Have you worked out what it is yet?
I think it's a pass.
I think it is, yes. So well done, congratulations. Yeah, you've done enough on there. This was really good actually. This paper was really good. This part of it was really good, and it obviously showed how it played into your strengths about being able to look at stuff, assess it, look at the differences, and then basically bridge that gap with information, and then make sure everything was implemented, the practical elements that come off the back of it were implemented correctly.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if I take SG-1, SG-2, 2 assessment plans. From what we agreed right back at the start there, the whole area, I'll give you feedback for each individual plan anyway. But I'm pleased to say that you've successfully passed both elements that we were looking at, or both plans that we were looking at.
Thank you.
The real positives are in there, as we've already covered on. I've hopefully covered them as we've gone through there. Some real good understanding. Your understanding and knowledge is there, and yes, you've been away from education for a while, but your ability to retain and hold that information and then apply it practically has been really good, and that's been evidenced from the knowledge you picked up on SG-1 with your introduction to health and safety, and the answers you got off the back of that, and your course certificate with the score that you got on the bottom of it as well, and then how you've used that within SG-2. And if I go back to SG-1 as well, this is more for an area for development, I suppose it is if you are looking at doing those further courses, and it's, as you've identified yourself, you've answered the questions within the second part of SG-1, that question paper. They've been answered, and they've been answered correctly. The expansion on the answers a little bit there, and a bit of that wider taking into account of if you're looking at the areas you were working in, there was the firehouse, the drill yard, and all those bits there. You've evidenced enough off of those, but then don't forget the main training block. Or if you're looking at a whole other area, if we want to take into account Kemble Airfield or something like that, including those into your answer as well. It would have just provided more context and depth to your answer. But that's a development point that we can work forward as we take you forward as well. And it's something you'll pick up and develop more as well as you start to do more assessments and more exams as well. But overall, finishing it all off, I'm really, really pleased with the way you've approached this. I appreciate there's been a lot of stuff going on in your private life as well at the moment there. So, you know, your motivation and enthusiasm to sort of go through all of this as well has been really appreciated. It's been really good to see. And the outcome's been really good to see. We went right way back to the start there. What do you want to get out of this? Do you think it's met those for you?
Yes, definitely.
So, identifying, are you doing the right thing? Giving you something to sort of hang your hat against and say, actually, I'm doing the right thing, and I've been assessed against some form of criteria. And actually, I agree with that. So, some really good behaviours, some areas we can work on and develop with you, and then we're looking forward there. You've got the offer from the health and safety team to do the risk assessment managers training, giving you access to the risk assessment database, and also for them to upload you onto all the other e-learning courses which have currently been you're excluded from doing because there's that conflict between your corporate and your on-call role. So it opens up all that stuff there for you. So it gives you that career development and career progression, which ultimately is good for you, especially with over the next year or so, isn't it? We got a fair bit coming up.
We've got a lot coming up, a lot of development. Yeah, a lot of development. It's always busy anyway, so it will be an interesting time for us. It'll be a challenging time, but we'll get over it. We'll be all right.
And you're going to be front and centre on that as well, mate. So you're going to be there leading a lot of the stuff on there. So
we'll do our best.
Hopefully, this now, the confidence it's given you now, and the standard you projected, which has been really good, it'll be what you need to do to take you forward there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's the outcome of the assessment. Have you got any questions?
No. Okay. Thanks. I think we've covered everything.
No. Have you got? Are you comfortable and happy with the assessment outcome?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Are you comfortable and happy with the feedback that I provided with you, or is there anything in there that you'd like to discuss? Or
no, it's all fair. I think you've done it really well. I think we've discussed it on video and obviously backwards and forwards as we have been outside and doing all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we've been really open throughout the process. I knew exactly if I needed to mention anything to you, be taken on board, and yeah, it's been very good.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you. Like I say, I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your enthusiasm.
Thank you
for partaking in all of this, and also one that has helped you with you, but also it's helped me with my process as well.
Good.
There, so no, I thank you for that, Simon.
No problem at all.
And yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much.
If there's nothing more to say, do you want to stop this? Because I appreciate that being in front of a video really isn't comfortable for you.
No, it's not my cup of tea, if I'm honest.
No. Okay, let me stop that now then, Maddie.
Thank you.